Thank you for your time. Each subscription is a sign of support that I truly appreciate.
Imagine a bright spring afternoon in Lower Manhattan. Sewing machines hum, streetcars rattle outside. In less than 20 minutes, this building will become a vertical tomb. Before the smoke rises, let us meet the girls trapped inside. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory crowns the ash building, 3 crowded upper floors. 500 workers stitch fashionable shirtwaists for pennies. Most are teenage immigrant girls from Italy and Eastern Europe, breathing lint, racing clocks, dreaming of pay envelopes and promised futures. You are Margaret Schwartz, 20 years old, from a small Galician town. You send money home every week. In a cheap boarding house drawer, you keep a photograph of your parents, already fading at the edges like the patience of your body. Margaret works the 9th floor near Washington Place windows. Her machine sits in a narrow aisle between tables stacked with cotton and tissue patterns. Pathways are blocked by chairs, baskets, half-finished blouses. Fire, if it comes, will find only fuel. You are a cutter named Joseph, exhausted from 10 hours of slicing fabric. You hide a cigarette in your lapel pocket, strike a match, flick it toward a scrap bin that has overflowed for weeks. The match lands on tissue paper. One tiny orange tongue of flame begins climbing. Within heartbeats, tissue patterns flare like dry leaves. Flames skim along tabletops, leap to hanging bundles of shirtwaists. Workers shout in many languages. The air thickens. Those nearest the stairs run. Those near windows freeze, stunned by impossible choices. You are Rose Freedman, 16, newly arrived from Eastern Europe. You smell smoke before seeing fire. Someone yells, "Run down!" But you glimpse the boss is already fleeing upward. Instinct whispers, "Follow the powerful." You turn toward the roof instead. Stairways fill with choking fumes. The Green Street stairs become a chimney. On Washington Place, one exit door remains bolted, routinely sealed to prevent theft, and keep union organizers outside. In this moment, it keeps desperate workers inside instead. Panicked girls pound that sealed door until their hands bleed. Someone tries a key ring, drops it in the dark. Feet trample metal, screams mix with coughing. The handle grows too hot to touch. Hope shrinks to the thickness of wood. You are the building's night watchman, usually charged with checking doors. Today you hesitated, leaving Washington Place bolted as instructed. Now you hear fists hammering from the burning side. Your own hands shake on the cooler knob, uselessly. Elevators offer another escape. Operators cram terrified workers inside, far beyond limits. Each trip down leaves scorched paint on the walls. Heat warps the guide rails. Eventually, the car stalls between floors. Girls still leap blindly into the empty shaft. The so-called fire escape clings to the exterior wall like an afterthought. It is narrow, rusted, bolted poorly into brick. When too many frightened bodies surge onto it, the metal twists, rips free, and a cluster of workers plummets. On the crowded street below, weekend strollers become horrified spectators. They tilt their heads upward, shielding eyes from sun and ash. At first, they think falling objects are bundles of burning cloth. Then they recognize skirts, limbs, hair, faces. You are a young man in the crowd, a college student crossing Washington Square. You watch a girl climb onto a sill, cross herself, then step into open air. Her skirt balloons, briefly graceful, before collapsing against unforgiving pavement. Fire engines arrive quickly, horses lathered, bells clanging. Firefighters raise ladders, stretch nets, aim hoses. But the ladders reach only to the 6th floor. The Triangle's burning rooms sit higher. Nets shred under the combined weight of multiple jumpers. Inside, Margaret sees girls choosing windows over flames. She tastes burning fabric, hears glass cracking. Her hands clutch the edge of her machine. Run and maybe burn. Stay and certainly burn. Which death feels less like surrender, she wonders. You are Kate Alterman, 19, working near Margaret. Smoke thickens into a gray wall. Through it, you glimpse Margaret kneeling at the bolted door, her skirt already smoldering. She beats at the flames with her fists, silently, stubbornly. Kate turns away, running toward windows and another stairwell. Later, she will replay this instant for decades, asking herself whether one more second beside Margaret could have mattered. Survival often requires stepping over unresolved questions, leaving them to smolder. On the 10th floor, owners Isaac Harris and Max Blanc receive the first warning telephone call. They act quickly, guiding relatives and office staff to the rooftop. Someone finds a ladder bridging to the neighboring building's safe, solid roof. You are Harris, panting on that adjoining rooftop, coat singed, eyes stinging. You hear faint cries below, see smoke billowing from windows. Financial losses flash through your mind alongside human ones. For years, people will debate which mattered more. Back at street level, police struggle to hold the gathering crowd. Every new falling body cracks the air like thunder. Some onlookers faint, others silently count each jumper, as though numbers could impose order on this accelerating catastrophe. The fire devours 3 upper floors in roughly 18 minutes. For those inside, time billowed outward. Each minute felt like an hour of heat, smoke, and desperate calculation. By the time hoses effectively reached the windows, flames had already consumed fabric, furniture, and flesh. You are a coroner's assistant summoned to the improvised morgue. Row upon row of bodies, many unrecognizable, line the floor. Identification relies on jewelry, shoes, scraps of letters. For Margaret Schwartz, a distinctive gold tooth finally confirms her name. Families roam the morgue, clutching photographs, whispering names. Some must lift, sheets from more than one body, seeking familiar scars, birthmarks, pieces of clothing. Grief turns methodical, almost bureaucratic. Love becomes a process of elimination, conducted under harsh lights. You are a typesetter at a newspaper, setting the victim list in lead type. Your hands shake as you compose names you recognize. Your neighbor's daughter, the girl who lived downstairs. Each letter feels heavier than the last. You barely finish before tears blur your vision. In the days that follow, the city learns that most victims were very young women, some barely teenagers, many supporting entire families. Their faces stare from newsprint like unsent passport photographs, forever frozen in borrowed Sunday clothes. You are Frances Perkins, a social worker who witnessed bodies falling from the Triangle. Standing in that crowd, you feel rage harden into purpose. Right there, you quietly promise yourself, this will be the last such workplace horror. Labor organizers seize the moment. The International Ladies Garment Workers Union, long battling sweatshop conditions, organizes mass meetings, funerals, and marches. They chant for unlocked doors, sprinklers, shorter hours, dignity. Grief becomes leverage, mourning converted into organized political pressure. A massive funeral procession weaves through rain-soaked streets. Empty hearses symbolize unidentified victims. Banners demand justice in Yiddish, Italian, and English. An estimated 100,000 mourners march. Several times that number watch. The city moves as a single, grieving body. You are a little girl on the sidewalk, holding your mother's hand, watching black-clad women pass, wailing. You ask who died. She answers, "Girls like you, working." The words lodge somewhere deep, growing into a lifelong suspicion of sealed doors. Prosecutors charge Harris and Blanc with manslaughter, focusing on whether they knowingly kept Washington Place doors bolted during business hours. If jurors believe the door was deliberately sealed, the owners could face prison. The courtroom becomes another cramped, overheated arena. You are Kate Alterman, now on the witness stand. You describe seeing Margaret burning by the door, her dress trailing fire, her body like a living torch. Your accented English trembles. The jurors watch your shaking hands more than your face. Defense attorney Max Stuyer senses vulnerability. He asks Kate to repeat her story, once, twice, then several more times, pushing her through each harrowing detail. Her phrases remain almost identical. The jury begins wondering whether grief has been carefully rehearsed. Stuyer argues that such precise repetition must come from coaching, not authentic memory. He exploits the gap between trauma's tangled reality and courtroom expectations. By undermining Kate's credibility, he gently loosens the prosecution's single strongest thread of evidence. You are a juror, torn between sympathy and legal standards. You believe the door likely was bolted, yet the attorney's questions have planted seeds of doubt. The judge instructs you, guilt must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. Conscience battles instruction. When verdict time comes, the jury acquits Harris and Blanc. Legally innocent, They exit the courtroom under scattered boos. For many New Yorkers, the law itself seems on trial now, exposed as too narrow to contain moral outrage. Insurance payouts astonishingly exceed the factory's material losses. After everything, the owners collect substantial compensation for destroyed property. Families of the dead later receive modest settlements, amounts that barely cover funerals. Money flows upward, while ashes settle downward into memory. You are the mother of a victim holding a settlement check that feels insultingly small. The signature line might as well read, "For your daughter's life, this sum." You consider tearing it up, then remember rent, bread, younger children. Public. Anger does not fade. A New York State factory investigating commission forms, visiting hundreds of workplaces. Investigators document blocked exits, flammable materials, child labor, and non-existent safety plans. Triangle was not an anomaly. It was the most visible symptom. You are a former sweatshop worker, now a commissioner, walking factory floors. The smell of lint and oil transports you back 15 years. You see your younger self in every teenage girl at a machine. Your questions grow sharper, less polite. Frances Perkins joins that commission, asking hard questions. Out of these hearings will grow groundbreaking labor protections, maximum hours, minimum safety standards, mandatory fire drills, and building regulations. She helps craft Social Security, unemployment insurance, and federal workplace standards. In later years, Frances Perkins becomes Secretary of Labor under President Roosevelt. When asked where the New Deal began, she often answers, "On that day of the Triangle Fire. A nation changed because girls burned. Safety became a right, not a privilege." You are a union organizer in the 1920s, holding up a charred shirtwaist to a crowd of new workers. You point to the ash building, now visible from your rally. "This is why we strike," you say. "This is why we vote." You are Rose Freedman, now an old woman in California. Journalists seek your memories. Each retelling scars your sleep, yet honors lost co-workers. You insist on repeating one point. The bosses knew an escape path. The girls sewing below did not. Memory plays tricks. Survivors disagree on specific moments, the sequence of warnings, the timing of bolted doors, who ran where. Historians argue over floor plans and testimony, yet on one fact they agree completely. Neglect made the fire catastrophic, not inevitable. The Ash Building still stands, renamed the Brown Building, now part of New York University. Students hurry through hallways where once machines clattered. Many pass small plaques without reading. The silence of modern safety systems masks echoes of earlier screams. You are a student attending chemistry class there. One day, a professor casually mentions the Triangle Fire, pointing toward your hallway. Suddenly, the ordinary corridor becomes charged. You imagine smoke, blocked doors, girls your age bargaining with windowsills. Descendants of both victims and owners have since met at commemorations. Some bring flowers, others archival documents. Conversations are halting, awkward, human. In these encounters, history stops being an abstract story and becomes a complicated shared inheritance of mourning and responsibility. You are a granddaughter of Max Planck, learning family history from a stray newspaper clipping. Pride in immigrant success collides with horror at negligence. You begin embroidering each victim's name onto linen, trying to stitch accountability into a once-celebrated surname. For labor organizers worldwide, Triangle becomes a symbol. Photographs of the fire appear on union banners, posters, and classroom walls. Whenever workers demand sprinklers, unlocked doors, or emergency exits, they invoke not theory, but memory of burning shirtwaists. You are a modern fashion consumer, scrolling through online sales. Somewhere overseas, garment workers crowd unsafe factories, exits blocked by boxes. The styles differ from Edwardian shirtwaists, yet the underlying bargain, cheap clothing bought with someone else's risk, remains disturbingly familiar. Historians try to recover individual lives from ledgers and testimony, favorite songs, village nicknames, family jokes. Every detail resists the fire's attempt to reduce people to statistics. Margaret was not only a victim, she loved dancing, strong tea, mischievous storytelling. You are a young law student reading Kate Alterman's transcript. At first, you admire the strategic brilliance. Then you imagine Kate's shaking hands. restricted, vocabulary, desperate insistence. You start questioning whether technical victory should ever outweigh compassion for wounded witnesses. Commemorations each march gather around the Brown Building. Bells toll once for every life lost. Relatives read names aloud, voices catching on unfamiliar syllables from distant homelands. For a brief moment, the city pauses, listening to a multilingual roll call. You hear those names, perhaps on a recording, perhaps at a ceremony. None belong to you, yet something tugs inside. The distance between then and now, between their factory floor and your workplace, feels uncomfortably small, bridged by shared vulnerability. The Triangle Fire teaches that safety cannot rest solely on private conscience. Some owners will always gamble that disaster will not strike today. Only laws, inspections, and organized workers create systems strong enough to resist that quiet, deadly optimism. You are a current fire inspector entering a crowded warehouse. You notice blocked exits, overloaded shelves, malfunctioning alarms. Somewhere in your training, someone showed you photographs from 1911. Those images travel with you, silently influencing every citation you write. Storytellers face another responsibility. Portraying girls jumping from windows risks turning human beings into spectacle again. The challenge is not to reproduce horror cheaply, but to restore agency, context, and consequence. To show choices made under impossible pressure, not mere falling silhouettes. You, the viewer, have now walked through this building of memory from basement to roof. You have met Margaret, Rose, Kate, Harris, Blank, Frances, and unnamed others. Each carried conflicting fears and hopes. None expected history to hinge on their workday. The fire turned workplaces into political battlegrounds. It helped birth modern labor law, inspired reforms far beyond New York, and shaped ideas of corporate responsibility. Out of smoke and ash emerged a radical notion: a safe job is a basic right. Yet history warns that rights can erode. Whenever regulations are dismissed as burdensome, whenever unions are weakened, whenever inspections slacken, sealed doors creep back in new forms. Complacency becomes a slow-moving fire, invisible until sparks meet accumulated neglect. You are a historian. You find a floor plan. You measure the distance between tables. You calculate, Kate Alterman could not have seen what she claimed. But trauma bends time. Trauma bends space. Some wounds are public, some are private. The Ash Building's brick walls survived heat that shattered glass and consumed bodies. That endurance tempts forgetfulness. If the structure stands, perhaps the tragedy feels less urgent. But walls remember differently than people. They hold scars without telling stories. Margaret Schwartz never wrote a memoir, never testified, never saw the reforms born partly from her death. Her story reaches you only through others. Words, reconstructed from fragments, remembering her fully means, granting her more than a footnote in disaster statistics. So, when you pass an emergency exit, notice whether it swings freely. When you hear about distant fires and unfamiliar factories, imagine faces, not just headlines. Let Triangle turn abstract empathy into concrete vigilance, transforming everyday habits into quiet acts of solidarity. In the end, this is not only a story about a past inferno. It is a mirror held to every workplace today. The final question belongs to you. When the next alarm sounds somewhere, will earlier lessons stand open like unlocked doors?